Hello and welcome to this webinar entitled Getting Sales Recruitment Right. Today we're going to look at how you can use behavioural science to recruit top salespeople to your business and ultimately enhance the performance of your sales teams. First, I want to highlight the very real costs that a business faces when recruiting. The average cost of recruiting a single individual now stands at over £30,000 and the cost of a bad hire stands at £10,000 per month. Even once you've brought someone in, that new starter can take up to 6 months to become fully operational. Sales is the job role most affected by retention issues, and so it's likely that if you're a sales manager that you've encountered such problems more than once and are keen to find a solution. But I want to focus on the positives and highlight the real value that getting the right person in place can bring your business. Clearly, a bad hire is expensive, whilst a good hire can have a huge positive impact, particularly in a sales role. Imagine what a difference you could make to your bottom line if you were able to increase productivity in your sales team by 67%. So, how do we increase our chances of hiring great salespeople? Let's take a look at the most common recruitment methods used by employers when hiring new staff. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the most common recruitment method used is the interview. Ability tests are used by around half of all employers. Personality questionnaires are used by just over 2/3 of employers, and job preview exercises such as role plays are used by just 27% of employers. Surprisingly, references are used by only around 20% of employers, perhaps due to the fact that references these days have very little information on them other than the duration of employment of that individual. Larger organisations are more likely to use methods beyond simply interviewing. Consider now the effectiveness of those different recruitment methods. Ability tests and job preview exercises are the single best methods for predicting whether a candidate will be good in the role. Assuming that these exercises or tests are assessing a skill or ability that is known to be crucial to the role, for example, a numerical reasoning test for an accountancy role. A competency-based interview is next, followed by personality questionnaires. Bar references, the CV or application form interview is the least effective method of recruitment. Assessment centres, which include a combination of methods, can really enhance the recruitment process and significantly increases the likelihood of you making the right hiring decision. Now let's overlay those two graphs. The CV or application form interview is the most popular method of recruitment, but as you can see, one of the least effective methods. The job preview exercise is the least popular method of recruitment, bar references, yet is the single most predictive method alongside an ability test. But nothing beats a combination of methods, known as an assessment centre, for accurately predicting a top performer. Why are interviews relatively poor? Well, there's a variety of factors at play. It could be down to the skill of the interviewer. You're in a position where candidates are selling themselves to you. This is known as a self-report exercise. So essentially the candidate is telling you about themselves in the way that they choose to. They're as salespeople choosing to present the positives and maybe choosing to omit some of the more negative aspects of their performance or past experiences. It could also be that the scoring criteria for the interview is unclear, and if there's more than one person involved in the recruitment process, then perhaps individuals are looking for different things from that process. Why is an assessment centre so good? Well, people are complicated. Hiring is a major investment for your business. You wouldn't choose to buy a car or buy a house on the basis of just one viewing, and nor should you do that in recruitment. Different assessment methods focus on different things, and assessing a person through a variety of lenses, in this case a variety of assessment exercises, which looks at both motivation, personality, ability, knowledge, experience, can only be a good thing. Also, people don't volunteer some of these things very easily, so they might tell you their knowledge and experience in an interview, but even then they might choose to embellish certain aspects or perhaps omit key details. If you ask a salesperson to describe their personality or motivation, I doubt you would get a completely open and honest answer. And why is that? Well, the interview format is flawed. It allows salespeople to do what they do best, which is to sell themselves, their own features and benefits with you as the customer. Companies can be reluctant to invest in more in-depth recruitment methods, but as we've already seen, this is a false economy. So, if we're bought into the idea that using multiple recruitment methods is a good thing, how do we decide which methods to use and what additional insights or knowledge does each method give us about our candidate? Our sales recruitment model assesses not only what you can see in terms of how a candidate will sell, but crucially also identifies their will, i.e. their motivation and drive to continuously demonstrate the critical sales behaviours day in, day out. The iceberg is a great analogy, as most of the person's behaviour that you can see is based on their motivations, drivers, feelings and emotional responses which are internalised and you cannot easily see. The how measures a candidate's understanding of the role. For a sales role, an example of this would be to ask them to tell you how they would deal with an angry customer. This is where most informal interviews would conclude, with the candidate giving you a self-report of perhaps how they would deal with that situation. The can takes things one stage further and asks a candidate to show you that they can accurately apply that knowledge that they've described. For example, by asking them to undertake a sales role play. This shows you that they either can or can't implement the skills that they have described during the interview. And this method of assessment is known as direct observation. You, as the hiring manager, is able to directly observe that person's sales techniques and skills. The will measures the motivation and drive of an individual to keep applying those skills hour after hour, day in, day out. This is a crucial element of sales recruitment, which is often overlooked, partly because it's very difficult to assess. If you ask someone what motivates them, you tend to get a high-level, generic response. A salesperson might say, I enjoy hitting targets, or I like achieving bonuses. It doesn't necessarily differentiate between a good salesperson and a poor performer because they would both answer in a very similar way. It's not a complete picture of an individual's motivations because it doesn't give us enough detail about key aspects of the role that they might feel comfortable undertaking or uncomfortable. So for example, chasing leads, networking, presenting. To truly understand a salesperson's individual motivations and drivers, you need a specialist tool such as a psychometric test. The will is absolutely crucial in sales. Salespeople are the face of your business, and if they're not sufficiently motivated, they will not be making contact with enough customers or will not be sufficiently focused on their message when they are in front of people. In addition, in many sales roles, your salespeople are left to get on with selling, particularly in a field sales situation. Again, if they're not sufficiently motivated, they will not be making contact day in, day out with customers. Interviews are not great for a number of reasons. They are only a self-report, so therefore you're very reliant on the candidate and what they choose to tell you or not about themselves. You cannot see the candidate sell with your own eyes. They're one of the least predictive forms of assessment. And based on our sales model, they only look at the top of the iceberg, i.e. what the candidate knows rather than what they do. If you do use an interview, then try and get as much as you can from it. For example, by using a psychometric test that enables you to probe motivations and drivers in a much more bespoke way. Using a role play will really help you to understand how a candidate will sell your product or service if they were in the role. In that situation, they're providing you with direct evidence of their capabilities, and therefore you'll have a much deeper understanding of their likely sales style and technique. The will is key to selling and selling effectively. The best salespeople are comfortable undertaking sales activities day in, day out, and in fact enjoy some of those core sales activities such as prospecting, seeking referrals, or asking for business. The failure to measure a candidate's will is why some candidates that might impress at interview ultimately fail, because they can perform for short periods in order to appear effective during a recruitment process, but are unable to sustain that level of performance over the long term. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to know any more, please feel free to get in touch. You can reach us via our website.